Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again. December 19th. It's Friday, TGIF, 11:30. Pretty rainy, crappy day. First off, tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to be doing our quantum show with the amazingly talented Travis Lloyd at Hey Sailor. So it's a 7 o'clock show. Come on by if you're around. Should be a fun time. Travis Lloyd is a tremendous talent, so always love playing at Hey Sailor. So yeah, it is a super dark day, as you can kind of tell. I have uh, limited lighting here, but felt like doing the video anyway. So last night was super fun. I just uploaded the video this morning. I went to go see Black Christmas from 1974, one of the greatest horror movies ever. Pretty much the most important slasher movie ever made, one of the most influential movies, directed by Bob Clark. There was a really cool showing of the film at this film club that the Red Rabbit Bazaar, which is a music venue, also it's a vintage clothes shop, but they have a music venue, but they also do lots of different events at this place at the Red Rabbit Bazaar. It's in Bangor, Maine, and I went to it last night. They have this whole it's like a bi-monthly series where they show movies, and the first one that I came across, I guess it started a few months ago, but the first one that I saw was they were showing Maniac by Bill Luswig, which is my all-time favorite slasher movie. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. And then I saw a couple weeks ago that they were going to be showing Black Christmas, so I went to it last night, and it was a good time. So check out the video. I just uploaded the video a little bit ago on the whole experience. I actually came home last night. Got home around 11 o'clock, but I was pretty jazzed about the whole situation, and especially because there were like a ton of young kids there, and I'm like, wow, these young kids are like digging the old school shit where it started, the coolest shit. So I was like, I was really fired up by that. So I made a video pretty late last night, and I just uploaded this morning. So check that out. And I just also uploaded a video on one of my favorite film composers, and also one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Uh, Nora Orlandi, who is the composer for, or was the composer for one of my favorite films directed by Sergio Martino, which is just an amazing giallo film, The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. And I have that album, the soundtrack on CD. So I did a video on Nora Landy's career and the soundtrack itself. Such an amazing album. And it's such an amazing movie. So I uploaded that. So check that out. And today's video is a little bit different. It's going to be a little more of a film fanatic rant video for what it's worth. There's a couple of things I want to talk about. Some good stuff, and I guess some, maybe some stuff I'm like kind of irks me a little bit. But the two things I wanted to kind of talk about today was the release. So I guess it's opening tonight. The new James Cameron movie, Fire and Ash, the new Avatar movie. That's coming out. I think it opened last night, or it's opening tonight. I think. I'm pretty sure. And then the other thing I want to talk about, which I don't always do, but I have been doing them more. It's a very popular thing to do on YouTube. But I want to talk about a trailer reaction, and that is, I just watched a couple of days ago the new trailer for the new Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure, this new science fiction alien film. So I want to talk about both those things. So like I was watching, well, first and foremost, like I've talked a lot about James Cameron. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant filmmaker. I mean, without a doubt, super innovative. I mean, he's kind of insane, and he has directed some amazing films, without a doubt. I mean, you have Terminator, just some amazing films that he's really, Aliens, one of the greatest sequels ever in history, and The Abyss, which I really really love. And he's directed some masterful movies, and he's always known for his way of always kind of being ahead of the time, where he like will invent new technologies to show his vision, new cameras. He'll like literally invent new cameras, new techniques on how to shoot film. And he has done that pretty much with every film, with the Terminator films, the Alien film, um, and he's, oh, and a great example is like really pushing the boundaries with The Abyss, that no other film had been shot underwater to that degree, and even the technical skills and things that he really brought to the table that were new, with Titanic and then especially Avatar with CG and uh, and using computer technology and literally inventing new ways that a filmmaker can make a film, from top to bottom. So I mean, there's no doubt, and I did see a buddy of mine sent me this really cool interview with him a few weeks ago, where it was just basically James Cameron sitting down being interviewed, and he literally just talked about all of his movies that he's directed and all the kind of the behind the scenes details on what that required for him to make these movies, and the extreme hurdles that he had to overcome. And it's actually a really interesting, really really interesting interview that I hadn't really seen him talk so much about the ins and outs, as far as how tackling each of his films, and for the most part, were everything. It was always monumental. It was always like climbing this mountain, like Mount Everest, and especially in regards to him trying to speed up technology, technology that just certain cameras that just didn't exist, and him, basically inventing these cameras, and then also how he did a lot of these films with the budgets that he had. Some obviously some with very big budgets, but then some with where he had to ask the studios for more money, or he didn't have all that much money. So it's a really interesting interview. And I do like James Cameron. I do love some of his movies tremendously. Aliens is and Aliens is probably my favorite film of his, and then Terminator. Those are masterpieces. Aliens I think is arguably the greatest sequel ever made, outside of maybe The Godfather 2. So, I mean, it's obvious his legacy is pretty cemented. And I've seen both Avatar movies. The first one that came out many years ago, and then I saw The Way of Water a couple of years ago, and that came out. And then tonight is the premiere of Fire and Ash. And then there's supposed to be, I believe, like 5 to 7 movies in this series. And there was a huge gap in between the first two movies, but now he has said that it's going to be a lot less time, 2 or 3, 2 or 3 years. And Avatar for me, I it's always been a pretty mixed bag for me. I think as far as from a technological standpoint and some of the visuals, yeah, it's staggering, and it's kind of a wonder to behold. I did see both movies again in the theater when they came out last year. I got a really cool director's cut of Avatar on Blu-ray, which I actually think is better than the theatrical cut. I didn't know that there were two cuts, and the version that I have, there's probably about 15 minutes added to the movie, but I will say those 15 minutes are really good. and they do add a lot to the story and some of the characterization. So, but again, I've always had this mixed thing with Avatar because I think from a visual standpoint, it's incredible, and some of the action sequences are absolutely incredible. But I've always felt like the story, with all of the detail and all of the passion and love put into the tech aspects of the Avatar movies, I've always felt the story is like, with there being some interesting twists and turns, but I've always felt the story itself, especially the first one, was super generic and kind of just paint by numbers, and basically a retelling of the same story that we've encountered many times. Basically the white man saves the day. And as far as movies go, like I've always kind of, I mean, I say it kind of as a joke, but I actually think it's kind of true. I've always felt like, in a nutshell, the way I describe Avatar is it's dances with wolves in space. That's kind of how I think of it. And there's a series of movies that have that same theme. There's Fern Gully, The Last Samurai. Where basically, the white man strikes up this relationship with the local natives. The natives are at risk of being wiped out, but then the white man realizes how evil these actions are and rises up and saves the day. And it's always the white guy who does that. So it's kind of shitty, but I do love Dances with Wolves. I think that is a really fantastic movie. But it's that same, or Pocahontas. It's the same story too, the same thing. It's the same thing. It's a theme that's been done over and over again. And I feel like that at the end of the day, that's kind of what Avatar is. And so I've always felt like, wow, there's so much creativity in the effects and all of the tech and building the world of Pandora, but I felt like the story is like, could have been a little bit more original. And I understand that's kind of what he was going for, like that classic, I don't know, American storyline, if you will, or narrative. Kind of an older, earlier Hollywood story. But I've always felt it was undermined. It always stopped me from really embracing the film because of the story. Because it's essentially Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, or The Last Samurai in space. And it's funny, if you literally, I actually did that a few years ago where I watched all of those movies back to back. Not Fern Gully, but I did watch Pocahontas. I watched The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, and I watched Dances with Wolves, and I watched Avatar. I actually watched them together. And it's kind of fucked up and fucking crazy because literally those movies, yeah, they're obviously set in very different worlds and different time periods, but they literally are the same movie. They are literally the same movie, like cut, copy and paste. It's crazy. And then the second one came out, which I thought, The Way of Water, I thought was pretty good. I did like it more than Avatar as far as the story. I thought it did some new things, and I thought, visually it was even more of kind of a wonder to see. It was great to see visually in the theater. Both of them were. And I thought it was good. I thought it was better, as far as that goes. But then after I saw it, I never had a craving to see it again. And a lot of it is due because I enjoyed it, it was good. But I just felt like I never had a quench or desire to see it again. I was just like, okay, yeah, it was a fun experience. But there's 10,000 other movies that I just feel drawn to, and there's 10,000 other movies that I would prefer to watch because I'm totally into them. So it's just one of those things. I just I saw it. I've seen the first Avatar a few times. I probably have seen it about 5 times or so, and I've only seen the second Avatar, Way of Water, once. Like again, I only saw it the one time. I went with a friend and we saw it at the. I think we went to a matinee and it was around Christmas time. Around this time, 2 years ago, we saw it at Flagship, and I did think it was a step in maybe a little bit more of an original direction. Some of the action was really great, but ultimately I was like, meh. And I never had the craving to really see it again. And I don't think I don't know. I just don't really have an interest in it. Like it's good, you know, but um, Avatar. I guess I've been drawn to it more because obviously I have a couple copies of it. I have it on DVD, and then I have that director's cut, which I will say is better. And I will say, even though it's only 15 minutes of added footage, I will say it helps the story, and it makes the story a little bit more gripping, and maybe even well, like, even maybe to a degree, even a little bit more of its own thing or original. I definitely recommend people to see the director's cut. I didn't know that there was one until I bought it, so I because of the visual thing and some of the last the last battle sequence of the first Avatar is absolutely incredible. So I have just been drawn to that movie more. And then the third one, but overall, after The Way of Water, I was like, I don't know, like there's gonna be 7 of these movies, 5 to 7 of these movies, like I'm not really that invested in them to do that, and then to spend the money. And the other thing too with the Avatar movies that is a big drag is that they are just so fucking long. Like I again, the first one, which I've seen more, it's still I still feel like watching it at home when I have seen it. It's kind of I feel like I'm in a marathon. I feel like I do start feeling exhausted. And so that's a big problem with these movies. It's just how fucking long they are. And I've heard that the new one is even longer. I've heard it's like close to 3 hours. And I saw the trailer for Fire and Ash, and I just felt like it was the same movie again. I felt like it was exactly the same. It didn't seem like there was anything new. It didn't seem like we were going to be seeing anything new. It was just kind of be like this kind of recap or highlight reel of the other movies. Like it didn't seem like it was doing anything new, and I just was like, nah. I knew it was, and I know it's coming out. I think tonight, and I have no desire to see it in the theater, and I'm going to totally pass up on it. I don't even know if I'm going to. I'm definitely not going to go see it in the theater, and I definitely don't think. Uh, I don't know about renting it at some point, but so I don't know. My whole like enthusiasm has like, not that I was really enthusiastic to begin with. You know, I don't know. But again, I want before I talk about this next thing. One of the things I want to talk about was so I had started off the show with, and I've talked about this before, but I think it's kind of somewhat interesting or important to talk about. So I did say, a lot of great things about James Cameron, and I do feel like he's definitely cemented his like legacy as a really innovative director, and he's definitely made some, absolutely fantastic movies, especially back in the day. When I mean, even in hindsight though, when I think of Avatar, and then I think of a movie like The Abyss or Aliens, or The Terminator, I feel like those movies are those original movies are 10 times better than Avatar. I just think that they're more fresh, more original, just at face value, you know. So, but again, he definitely has a legacy that needs to be recognized, and I do recognize that. And he has made some incredible films. You know, I even like Titanic. I think Titanic is a pretty incredible film. And the sheer size and scope of that film. I mean, talk about it, you know, something that's really ambitious. But I do think that there's a side to James Cameron that I don't really like. You know, a few years ago there was that the last Terminator film that came out, and he James Cameron produced it, but the director of that film, who was the director for Deadpool, the original Deadpool, which is a masterpiece, he directed the last Terminator film, and that movie was an absolute disaster from top to bottom. Bad writing, bad direction, and I just was like, man, he did such a great job with Deadpool, and has a pretty good career. I'm like, why did this why did this go wrong? Why did this happen? What is going on with this? And Tim Miller was the director, and I saw an interview with Tim Miller about what the whole situation was on working with James Cameron on that last film. That was a disaster, and it bombed in a box office. And he described James Cameron as just being this total, you know, impossible person to deal with, mega maniacal. He he completely like dominated the whole vision of the film, and just really just gave Tim Miller like less and less leeway to enact his vision in the film. And he really came across sincere in this interview, talking about how James Cameron was just kind of a tyrant, you know, and a control freak, and he just like outvoted Tim Miller. And it got to the point of where after they finished, they like severed ties. I think the interview is still online, and it is very interesting. And they had a big falling out, and then they eventually Tim Miller and James Cameron reconnected and kind of squashed their beef, if you will. But it was interesting because he came across as like this crazed kind of megalomaniacal freak. It was wild. And it really fucked up that movie. It fucked up that movie so bad. I mean, I think that's what Ridley Scott did with Romulus, which he fucked up that movie because he's so hell bent and insistent on like somehow working in the awful Prometheus, you know, idea. Somehow he's got to squeeze that shit in, and it can't just go away. And I think that's what he did with working with Fede Alvarez. Although that movie wasn't as bad as the Terminator film. So, and then there was another thing a few years ago where there's been this demand for a few years for a lot of James Cameron's films to get 4K Blu-ray release. You know, because a lot of those films are really, you know, really popular, really beloved films, and so people are really wanting to see Terminator and Aliens and The Abyss to finally get a chance to see these incredible films on 4K. And then I guess it was a couple of years ago they were finally released. On 4K. And they were very expensive. You know, 4Ks can be super expensive. Movies in general can be very, very expensive. 4Ks can be very, very expensive. And they were released, and there were some people that were, you know, basically his fan base were kind of complaining that the resolution and some of the transfers were not very good for the price. and people were kind of complaining about it. His fan base, and so, and I don't know what it's actually called, but James Cameron being James Cameron because he invents like all of these new methods and new cameras, new tech for his films. He had created this new kind of technology um, enable for him to be able to transfer his films to 4K. It was just some kind of new um, technical or some new technology that he basically created for this transfer, and supposedly it kind of fucked up the transfers of some of these films. So anyway, there was a little bit of an outcry from fans that the transfers for some of these films don't look very good for the price. And then he got really pissed off at his fans, and he basically told his fan base that they're a bunch of losers, and that they need to get a life, and that they need to move out of their parents' basement. And he just lambasted his fan base. So I think he, in a lot of ways, for him to say that and to him to get so hurt over that with the amount of money he's got and everything, I kind of think he's kind of a dick. Aside from all of his accomplishments, I think he's kind of a dick. So anyway, I saw a review for. I've seen some reviews because I've kind of made up my mind. I'm not going to go see Fire and Ash. I don't have any interest. And I've been checking out reviews because the reason I'm doing that is because I know I'm not going to probably see it. So, and most of the reviews have not been very good for this film. They've basically said that, oh, of course, it's expected. Visually, it's going to be amazing and all these things, which critics are saying that, and a lot of YouTube people. But they're saying the story is like, it's literally like the same storyline from the first two movies. There's nothing new, and it's long as hell. It drags ass, but visually it's amazing, and that there's no significant, nothing surprising in the story. There's no like big developments. So I'm like, okay, I don't have any interest in seeing it. And then this morning I watched a review by Chris Stuckman, and I do like Chris Stuckman. He made a movie. He directed a film which I haven't seen, Shelby Oaks, which was a film that got picked up by Neon, which was a big horror studio, big studio. Mike Flanagan produced it. One of the greatest directors in horror films, one of the best filmmakers. So he got a lot of a lot of clout all of a sudden, and he's a YouTube guy, and he's been running his channel for years, and as far as YouTube channels, he's definitely the biggest guy. I mean, and he was doing it before anyone else. And when I first had this idea to do these YouTube channels, he was definitely an inspiration. So, and I used to watch his watch his shows all the time. But his whole channel and his whole thing of how he reviews movies, since now he's become a filmmaker. And I haven't seen Shelby Oaks. I've heard it's okay. I heard it's not great, but I've heard it's okay. And but ever since he kind of became part of the industry and as a filmmaker, he's definitely changed the way he reviews movies. He's much more gentle on films. He still can be critical, but he's definitely changed his whole tone, and he's even said that, because he realizes how hard it is to make a film, and the craft and the respect and the love that he has for cinema and directors and actors and everything that goes into making a movie. He's decided to not really give bad reviews for films, and he said that, and so his reviews are very different now, and he can do whatever he wants. I understand that, and I will say, I did watch his review for Fire and Ash, and he was very critical of it. He wasn't just whitewashing and just saying, "Oh, it's amazing," and blah blah blah. No, he was very critical of it. He gave some. He did say some very positive things, but he also said some very negative things, mainly about the story, and that it's kind of this thing that we've seen over and over again. There's nothing new. It's very similar story wise to the first two films, and especially The Way of Water. In a nutshell, he didn't really praise this movie. It did make me excited. I mean, he did praise the visuals, of course, which everybody does, but it did make me excited about going to see this movie by any means. So, but across the board, the reviews have been pretty mixed or not great. And it's weird because I want to see theaters survive. I want to be able to always have that experience to go to the movies. But if I hear that a movie is bad, and yet in Chris Stuckman's case, like he's basically saying, in a nutshell, there's nothing new, there's nothing really innovative story wise with this movie. It's the movie out of the three that he likes he likes the least, and it's the weakest in the third movie. But then at the same time, he's like telling his audience, "Go to the theater, go to the theater, go to the theater, support theaters, support theaters." And I'm like, I want to support theaters, and especially with this whole fucking Netflix merger thing that's happening. I don't, we'll see how that plays out. And I hate that we live in this world where these corporate monsters are just like eating everything that we can, every media outlet known to man. It's like it's never enough, and there's no person to say, or there's no force that can say, there's that's enough. Like your belly is full, you don't need to eat anymore. You're fat and bloated. Stop consuming. Just stop. We should have more diversity, more people doing creative content, more companies, more startup companies, more independent artists. Just stop shoving shit in your face. But that's not how capitalism is run. More is more. So, but so he's basically saying that this movie is not as good as the other ones, and that's from what I heard from top to bottom, from top to bottom. And yet he's like telling the audience, go and support the movie theater. And I'm like, why? I mean, why do that for something that's kind of mediocre? It's like, I want to go to a movie. I don't go to a movie like I'm like pushing a lever. It's like when I go to the movies, I'm going because I want to really see it and I'm excited by it. I don't go like, and I hear it's like a movie. I'm not going to go to this. Why would I go to a movie when I hear that I'm going to have to spend 3 hours in the fucking theater and hearing from everyone that this movie is not very good overall, and on top of it, it's a huge IP. It's a huge franchise. I'm not really excited about the franchise as a whole. So why would I go to it just to like support theaters? It's like, no, I want to go because I want good quality movies. I want that experience. And I just feel like you can't you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like, no, you gotta have like, you gotta have taste, and you gotta like do things that you want to do. And I don't feel like that's the way to support a theater. No, it's like there's plenty of other movies out that are coming out now, and that are out that you could go to, that I think would probably be a really good experience. So why just like add to this financial behemoth's, pockets? Like, just, oh, it's not a good movie, but I just need to support theater, so I'm just gonna go. I mean, that's brainless. I don't understand that logic. So I wanted to talk about that, which I just thought is kind of a really ridiculous angle. Yeah. There's a movie that I really want to see called The Agent, which is a Brazilian movie that I've heard is tremendous, and it's actually playing around here. And it's like, I really, really want to see that. And it's like, that to me is like how I support theaters, because I'm enthusiastic about getting behind a movie and putting my money where my mouth is, because I think it's going to be a good experience, as opposed to something that's not going to be a good experience. Like, I don't understand, why would that be a motivating factor to support movie theaters and the film going experience. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's ridiculous. So anyway, the other thing which I think is positive, I wanted to talk about the trailer for and all of this kind of talk around this new Steven Spielberg movie called Disclosure. Emily Blunt is in it, which I'm a huge fan of hers. She's a really great actress. And I had heard about this movie, and it's coming out the summer of next year, 2026. And there was like this kind of mysterious marketing campaign for this film. There was no trailers. They were putting up these interesting, mysterious kind of posters for the film. There wasn't any press. And then just the other day, the trailer dropped for Disclosure. One of the craziest things I heard about this movie was that supposedly this film is like a sequel to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of weird and kind of crazy. But because I feel like Close Encounters of the Third Kind is one of my top 10 movies of all time. I absolutely love that movie. But I watched the Disclosure trailer, and I will say that the trailer looked really good, and it did not have. I definitely feel like it's definitely a movie about alien invasion, and it's called Disclosure, and it comes out I think July of next year, 2026. But I thought the trailer looked really great. It did its job, like it didn't give away anything. It just made it more mysterious and engaging. And I'm like, this is how, if you're going to make a trailer, this is how you make a trailer, where it looks good. And the tone of the film looked pretty dark and really serious. It didn't look like, I did not get Close Encounter vibes from it. Because Close Encounter vibes, there's elements of that movie where it has, it has a little bit of a family kind of thing to it, obviously. And there's some very dark moments of that movie. But it doesn't have that super kind of dark tone throughout the entire film. And this had that vibe, like way more serious. Kind of like Minority Report, which I really love by Steven Spielberg, which I think is a badass movie. So it's interesting, and I was really really loving this trailer, and I really want to see it. So I don't know. I don't know anything else about it. The cast looked great. The special effects in the film, because they didn't show a lot of these set pieces of action, but they show little pieces of it, and it looked really good. But it looked really dark. It looked serious, and it looked a lot more. I don't know, kind of had this intense kind of tone to it. It looked really cool. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's something to look forward to. I'm actually excited by it, and I'm actually looking forward to it. So yeah, we'll see. So anyway, that's my rant for today, and peace. Have a great day.